What's going on, guys? It is the Coaster Battleman here, bringing you another video. It is roller coasters that disappointed me in 2018 so far, and there are quite a lot of coasters on this list, not as much as the surprises, but still quite a lot. And the first one we're starting out with is a Wild Mouse coaster, which I thought would be decent, but it wasn't, so we're starting off with Ricochet at Carowinds. And this is a standard Wild Mouse coaster there, and it's easily one of the worst coasters I've ridden. It was very bumpy for a Wild Mouse, and I just rode it once and never rode it again. It wasn't that enjoyable at all, and it really did kind of hurt, in my opinion. It was not really an enjoyable ride. Next we have Intimidator 305, and this coaster wasn't a complete disaster for me at all. I'm not saying any of that, but I was expecting it to be easily a top 5 coaster that I've ever ridden, but unfortunately that didn't happen. It still will easily make the top 15, but because the gray out is just unbelievable, and that drop is fantastic, and the turns are super intense, but the ride is just too short, and there's not really any airtime. So those two factors alone just made this ride not as good, in my opinion, but I still think this is a fantastic ride. Super fun coaster, Intimidator 305. Definitely a really good ride, but it did kind of disappoint me. And next we have Vortex and Apocalypse. So these are both combined into one for a reason. So Apocalypse and Vortex, they're two B&M stand-up coasters, and they are the first B&M stand-up coasters I've ever rode. And Apocalypse used to be Iron Wolf at Six Flags Great America, my home park. And as Iron Wolf, I've heard many reviews that it was a terrible ride, not really a good stand-up, and I can understand. But I know Apocalypse, I had some expectations. I would be saying, I feel like this will be okay. I feel like it'll be a 6 out of 10. There might be a little bit of head banging, not too much. And I thought it would be pretty good, but overall, Apocalypse was just horrible. The head banging was non-stop. It was horrible. After that first drop and vertical loop, everything else just seemed to be horrible. The head banging was horrid, and it was just bad. The head banging was just ouch, like not good. Vortex, kind of the same thing. The first time I rode it, I thought it wasn't too bad, but the second time I tried it, I don't know what it was, but it was horrible and super rough and head banging. And it's a B&M, for crying out loud. B&Ms aren't supposed to be that rough. I don't know what it was with those two rides, but they're both definitely going to be in some of my worst coasters I've ridden videos. So next up we have Val Raven. So overall, this coaster, it's not a bad coaster by any means. Val Raven, like, it's a decent dive coaster, but I feel like it has kind of aged pretty badly, in my opinion. Like, over the years, I feel like since 2016, it just seems to keep getting rougher and rougher. And Val Raven, even though it's a fairly new ride, it was built in 2016, so it's only a few seasons old. It's not really the smoothest dive coaster or smoothest B&M. I still think it's a pretty fun ride, but I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the seat I'm in, but it is kind of not the smoothest. Like, I would say on any seat on Griffin is smooth, and then Val Raven, you have to be in one of the two completely middle seats to have a perfectly smooth ride, which I don't really understand. But next up we have Tempesta, which is a Busch Gardens Williamsburg coaster, and the one thing about this coaster, I did not expect this coaster to be some 10 out of 10 ride, and I was thinking it'd be like a 7.5, 8 out of 10 ride, and I thought it'd be pretty fun with the launch and the inversions, but I tried it out, and the launch was the launches were pretty solid, but going through those tight elements, there was some head bashing on those restraints. Like, if those were lap bars, the ride would have been way better, and I thought it would have been a lot more enjoyable if the over-the-shoulder restraints weren't there. Plus, they were super hard to put on in the first place, which slows down operations and just makes the line and the ride experience not nearly as enjoyable as its full potential would be. So, Tempesto definitely disappointed me. And I knew going in that the restraints would be horrible, but I wasn't expecting the ride to be that bad. Next we have Gatekeeper at Cedar Point, and this is another Cedar Point B&M. And I know I talked about Rougarou in the coasters that were anything but a disappointment, and they were exceeding my expectations, but Gatekeeper, I have to admit, it did disappoint me a lot, because when I rode it in 2016 and 2017, I thought it was such an awesome ride, like perfectly smooth, awesome inversions, the hang time was fantastic. But this year when I rode it twice or 3 times when I went back to Cedar Point, and I don't know what it was, but it was pretty shaky in the inner seats, for crying out loud. Usually the outer seats are more shaky, but I only rode the inner seats, and because it's the smoothest, and it was just really shaky throughout the ride. Like, the elements were still okay, but just not as good as they were before. Even though this coaster looks really nice looking, it's not as smooth as it used to be last year and the year before. So, yeah, that's all for this video, guys. Those are the roller coasters that disappointed me in 2018 so far, and not all of these are bad rides. Like, Intimidator 305, I think it's awesome. Valraven Gatekeeper, I still think they're decent rides. Tempesto, I still think it's a decent ride. The stand-ups, Apocalypse and Vortex, and then Ricochet, I thought were just purely horrible rides, even though I had not really that many expectations for Ricochet, as it's a wild mouse. I thought it would be decently smooth, but it was rough all along. So, yeah, that's all for this video, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned for more videos, and thank you guys so much for watching.